Welcome back. In this lecture, we'll learn strings. Strings can be assigned to a variable by enclosing with single or double quotes, and we'll cover the following topics: how to access elements of a string by using index, and how to find the length of a string, slicing, return a range of characters by specifying start and end index, negative index, that is to return a range of characters from the end of a string, and how to use strip function to remove white spaces, lower function to return a string in lowercase, upper function to return a string in uppercase, and how to use in and not in keywords to check if a phrase present in a string or not, replace function to replace a string, split function to split a string, concatenation operator plus to concatenate two different strings, and combining strings with other data types using format function, escape characters to insert characters that are illegal in a string. So now let's see the demo. Go to our IDE, project new Python file, and let's name it strings demo, and let's add a comment strings demo by inserting hash at the beginning. Now let's create a string variable by assigning string value to it, Python, and this string can be enclosed either in single quotes or double quotes as well. Let's try to print the value inside a string. Control S to save the file and right click, run strings demo. Now you can see Python is printed in the console. Now let's create another variable of a multiple line string. Let me copy this statement, and to make it multiple lines, let's enter this in the next line. So multiple lines can be assigned to a variable either by using 3 single quotes, or let's create another variable and make it multiple lines, and by using 3 single quotes or by using 3 double quotes as well. So now let me try to print string 2 and string 3. Control S to save the file and run it. Now you can see the values printed in the console. Let's add the comment. Multiple lines can be assigned to a variable either by using 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes, and here we are trying to print the string values inside a string variable. So run it. Now you can see under the string values you can see the output in the console. Now let's see how to access elements of a string. So let's add the comment. So let's say if you want to print the element at the index 2, so the index starts from 0, so 0 1 2. Control S and run it. Now you can see T is printed in the console. Let's add this statement to print in the console. So that's how you can access the element at the index 2. So now if you want to access the element at the index 15 in a string 2, so it starts from 0 0 1 2 3 4 5, and space is also considered as a element, so 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15, so it should print G. Let's run it. So now you can see G is printed in the console. Okay, so now let's try to find the length of a string by using len function. Let's add this comment and print, use the length function and pass the variable string 1 and find the length of a string, that is 6. So let's add this statement to print in the console and run it. Now you can see length of a string is 6. So let's see how to use slicing. Let's add this comment, and that is to return a range of characters. So for string 1, let's try to return the range of characters from 1 to 3 and run it. So you can see Y T is printed in the console. 0 1 2 3. So 3 is excluded in this case. Character at the position 3 is excluded. It only printed from range 1 to 2. So that's about slicing. Now let's see negative index, that is to return a range of characters from end of a string. Now let's create a new string variable string n and assign a value Python to it, and let's try to access the elements from the end of a string by giving negative index. Let's say -3 to -1. It is, we are trying to print the negative index. So let's add this to print in the console and run it. Now you can see H and O. In this case 3 is also excluded. 0, 1, 2. T is excluded, so HO is printed in the console. So that's how you calculate negative index. So now let's see how to use strip function to remove white spaces in a string. So let me create another variable string 4 and let's add white spaces to it. Here is one white space and then let's add one at the beginning as well. And let's try to use strip function and let's add this to print in the console and run it. Now you can see the white spaces is removed at the beginning and end of a string. So now let's see how to use lower function to replace a string in lowercase. So let me create another variable string 5 and let's assign value Python to it, all in uppercase, and let's try to print this variable and use lower function to return a string in lowercase. And let's try to print this in the console as well. Now let's run it and see it's all printed in the lowercase. Now let's see how to use upper function and return a string in uppercase. Print, let's use string 1 and convert into uppercase by using upper function and run it. So now you can see it is printed in the uppercase by using upper function. So let's print that as well. Okay, now let's see how to use in and not in keywords to check if a phrase is present in a string or not. Let's create a string variable string 6 and let's write Python programming language and let's try to use the keyword in. Let's say if you wanted to check if the phrase prog is present in the string variable string 6. So prog in string 6, and at the same way print, let's say prog is not in string 6. So the first statement prog is present in the string, so this should return true and this should return false. So let's add this to print in the console. Control S to save the file and run it. So now you can see prog is present in the string str6 and it is not present in the string, so that is false. Okay, so that's how you use in and not in keywords. Now let's see how to use replace function. So let's try to replace in the string 1, let's try to replace h with x. So inside string 1 replace the character h with, let's say, x. So we are using replace function. Let's try to print this here, so it will be printed in the console. We are replacing character h with x using replace function. Control S and run it. Now you can see h is replaced with x. So let's use split function to split a string. Print. So let's try to split the multi-line string 2, and if you see string 2 dot split to split string 2. So let's print this in the console as well. So this is the value inside string 2 and we are trying to split using split function. Okay, so let's run it. It splits by space. Okay, so that's how we use split function. Now let's try to concatenate by using plus, that is the concatenation operator. So let me create another variable string 7 and assign string value Python to it, and let's create one more variable string 8 and assign programming string value to it. Now let's try to combine these two variables by using the concatenation operator plus. Control S and run it. So now you can see Python programming. So let's add a space. That's how you can add a space. So let's run it, and now you can see Python programming. So to add a space, use enclose in double quotes to add space between strings. So here we are trying to concatenate strings using concatenation operator plus. So let's try to print this as well in the console and run it. Now you can see concatenate strings by using plus operator, and you can see the value Python programming. So now let's combine strings with other data types. So let's say we have a variable called name and assign value to it. Let's say Bob. So that's the reason this name value variable becomes a name string variable. And let me create another variable age, let's say 40, and height, say 6'5", and another boolean variable smoking status is, let's assume he doesn't smoke, so false. And let's try to combine Bob is 40 years old. So we are trying to combine a string variable with an integer variable. So control S and run it. Now we get the type error because by using concatenation operator plus, we can only concatenate string with a string but not a string with an integer variable. So let's add this comment here so you know why we get this error, and let's comment this line. And now let's try to use format function. So in this case, replace name with a curly braces, Bob is, and replace again age with curly braces, 40 years old dot format of Bob, that is stored in name, and 40 that is stored in age. So now let's try to print this. So now you can see Bob is 40 years old. So we are combining by using format function. Let's try to print format in the console. So now you can see by using the format function we are able to combine a string variable to a integer variable. Now let's add these two as well. Bob is 40 years old, comma, height is, and smoking status is, and add those two variables in the format function. So that's how you use format function. So this curly braces will be replaced by these values inside this variables. So control S and run it. So now you can see Bob is 40 years old, height is 6.5, and smoking status is false. So the curly braces is replaced by values inside the string variable name, that is, the name is Bob, age is 40, height is 6.5, smoking status false. So by using this format function we are able to combine a string variable and integer variable and floating point variable and boolean variable. So we'll learn more about booleans in the next lecture. So now let's see how to use escape characters to insert characters that are not legal in a string. Let's write escape characters to print in the console, and let's try to print. Python is a scripting language, and let's try to run this. So now you can see Python is a scripting language is printed in the console. Now to add double quotes to it, let's add scripting in a double quote and run it. Now you see invalid syntax. So this is illegal string, right? So we have to use escape characters to bypass the illegal characters inside a string. So run it. Now you can see Python is a scripting language. So double quotes is added inside the string scripting. In the next lecture, we'll learn booleans. Alright, see you in the next lecture.